I'm Iris Ruth Pastor, and I'm here today for a little small talk with Jeff Zaslow, who is a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. He's also the author of the last lecture, the co-author of the last lecture with Randy Pausch, and also the author of the best-selling book, Girls From Ames. And we're talking today about friendships, women's friendships, men's friendships, and the differences between them. So welcome, Jeff.
Hi, Iris.
It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I understand that Wall Street Journal normally covers affairs of the financial world, and yet you embrace affairs of the heart when you write your column called Moving On, which focuses on life's transitions. I was just wondering what you could tell us about the gist of the column that you wrote about women and friendships.
Well, I wrote a column about, it's now about 7 years ago, on how women's friendships are different than men's friendships. I mean, the researchers say that men's friendships are side by side. We do things together. We play poker, we play golf, we talk about the things we do. Women's friendships are face to face. They're sharing their lives and their emotions. You know, I'm a regular guy. I play in a poker game, same guys for 18 years. We only talk about the cards. We don't talk about our children or our lives. In fact, they don't even know my children's names. I used to say that, and I thought maybe I'm exaggerating that. And I turned to my left at the card game a couple of months ago, and I said to the guy on my left, Lance, I said, Lance, could you name my children? And he said, I could rename them. So that's the difference between male and female friendship.
You describe women's friendships as matchless bonds, and that the power of friendship triumphs over heartbreak and tragedy. And I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit to those bonds that you talk about among women.
Yeah, well, you know, the research again shows that you know, women's friendships are great for their health, their sanity, their happiness. In fact, one study shows that a woman is better off having one good friend in old age than 6 grandchildren. So women need somebody to talk to besides a husband or children, and that's their friends. And men, it's a little different. They're using their friendships to escape from their problems, and they're not necessarily going to turn to their friends with all their issues. So the dynamics are different. But I mean, writing this book about the Girls From Ames and hearing from hundreds and hundreds of women all over the country since the book came out, telling me about their groups of friends, you know, I certainly see that.
You talked about a middle-aged woman named Jenny who wrote to you, and that's really what started the whole book and process. And I was wondering if you could tell me why you chose her to focus on in her group of friends.
Yeah, in that original column, I heard from, I don't know, maybe 250 women, and I liked Jenny because you know, she told me that one of the friends, there were 11 of them, they're now in their mid-40s. One had died mysteriously in her 20s, and they still grieved for her. She told me that one of their friends had a daughter with leukemia, and they sort of rallied around their friend, and as her daughter was going through treatment. The daughter has since died, which is part of the book. She also said they laugh so hard when they're together they can't make it to the bathroom, so I thought I'd like to see that, you know, as a reporter. I also liked that they were at the age they were. They're at the end of the baby boom. I thought women in their 20s and 30s could identify with them, and women in their 50s, 60s, 70s also. If I pick a woman, you know, I've heard from women who are in their 90s and have friends for 90 years, but it's a different thing that I don't know that younger women would identify.
You also touched on quite a few other issues, and one of the things that I was wondering with when you wrote about them is, did you see any similarities or differences between them and Jewish women?
Well, one of them is Jewish. Jane from Ames is Jewish, which was you know, I enjoyed reporting on that too, because you know, it's hard to be Jewish in Ames. There were only about 30 families.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, and so they had to make their own. They had to make their own life as Jewish people there. They had to read the Torah. They had to teach their own children. You couldn't sit in the back of the synagogue. In fact, their synagogue was in a bowling alley. They converted it to a synagogue. So you know, they couldn't just sit in the back during the sermon and sleep. They had to know why they were Jewish. So, and in answer to your question, there was only one of the 11 women who is Jewish, but they were very welcoming to her. I've heard from Jewish women for sure, telling me about their friendships, and from groups of friends where one is non-Jewish and the rest are Jewish, or vice versa, which also makes things interesting. But I don't know that non-Jewish women and Jewish women are different per se. I know Jewish women like to talk and like to tell you things. So maybe there's a little more advice giving going on between Jewish friends.
Well, because you had described Jenny when she wrote to you as being kind of low key, and I was wondering if Jewish women tend to be a little more intense in their expressions of their feelings.
Oh, well, I know a lot of Jewish women. They're pretty intense sometimes. These Ames women were intense too. You know, women are serious about their friendships. They're serious about the things going on between them. Jewish women especially, I'd say. You know, I think, you know, in friendship is a big part of Judaism too. You know, to sort of, you don't just honor your mother and father, you look after your neighbor, and that's what friendship is all about.
What's online for them next? Is there anything else coming up on the horizon?
Well, there's going to be a movie. Lifetime Television is making a movie of the book, which is exciting.
And who's playing the girls? Any well-known celebrities by any chance?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like Whoopi Goldberg to play every role. No, the actresses haven't been cast. The screenplay is just being written, so the actresses haven't been cast.
I wanted to also, before we finish up, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the column that you wrote about male friendships. And it particularly impacted me personally because I have sons and I see how they relate to me on how they relate to each other on a very superficial level. And I wanted, with your permission, just to relate a story that this woman wrote about with her husband going on a fishing trip. And I was just wondering if I could relate that and then we could kind of talk about it. And what it was a woman from Wisconsin, from what I understand, who talks about how she effortlessly shares intimate feelings with her friends in contrast to her husband. And she talks to you about this fishing trip that he took with four of his friends from Canada, and that she was wondering what they talked about the whole week. So could you just share with us if you
well, one of the friends I think had health issues. One of the friends had a daughter getting married. One of his friends, what was the third thing?
Oh, he was having problems with his job. One was getting married, one was health problems, one problems with the job.
Yeah, so he came home after a week and she said, well, what about the guy getting divorced? And she said, that didn't come up. What about the guy with health issues? Didn't come up. What about the wedding? The guy with his daughter's getting married. Didn't mention the wedding. So she said to her husband, you know, a woman can enter a ladies' room and meet a stranger and have more to share than you guys shared with your best friends through. So that's your male and female friendship.
So what did you learn from this on a more serious note? Because it seems to me that we need to kind of readjust our thinking, because men's relationships value it, but it's different.
It's just different. You know, to say that men's friendships are inferior to women's friendships, it might be missing the point. Yes, men don't share the way women do. All the research shows that. But they're still getting, if a man wants to go, like, I'm going to play poker with my friends tonight, we're not going to talk about our children or our fears or our lives or even our jobs, but I'm going to enjoy myself and I'm going to enjoy the bonds of friendship. So it's just different.
So we really shouldn't try and change them, is what you're saying.
No, don't change the men in your life.
Okay. And you also made the point, though, Jeff, that men tend to talk to women about those things and not men. So I thought that was worth noting, too.
Yeah, they talk to their sisters, their wives, their mothers, their female platonic friends. So men still have weird places they go to talk about their emotions.
Which also kind of ties into what one of the things that you reflected on, which is that men resist high maintenance relationships. And could you tell me a little bit more about that? That's fascinating.
Yeah, sure. Men don't want a wife who's too high maintenance, and they don't want a friend who's too high maintenance. So I mean, I don't speak for all men, but that's sort of the average guy, that they don't want that. So it plays out in their life all the same ways. You know, they're not looking for a business partner who's high maintenance either. That's just the way men are structured.
This is Iris Ruth Pastor, a contributor to Let My People Know, which is an outreach and engagement initiative.